You're listening to Bigfoot Society podcast, hosted by our captain, Jeremiah Byron, where it's all Bigfoot all the time. Have you ever had the urge to do more, to be more? Now you can by joining Bigfoot Society on the Patreon. Get ad-free episodes and even member-only episodes. Take part in movie night and even live video chats. Interact behind the scenes with Jeremiah and other Patreon members like me, Leia. The powerful podcast goes on, and you may contribute a verse in our Patreon community. Carpe diem. Seize the day, Bigfooters, and make your lives extraordinary.
Welcome to Bigfoot Society. If you have Bigfoot activity to report from the same areas discussed in this episode, please reach out to me directly after this episode. And if you'd like to be on the podcast to discuss a personal Bigfoot encounter, please reach out to me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Do you wish there was more Bigfoot Society to listen to every week? Well, there is now. If you become a supporting member over at Patreon, you get a special members-only episode every single week on Wednesdays, and sometimes even more episodes. Head on over to patreon.com/The Bigfoot Society. And now let's get on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, we've got the privilege of talking to Ronda tonight. Ronda is a listener from Missouri that reached out to me with some really interesting things that she has experienced over her lifetime, but it's a privilege to have you on the show tonight, Ronda. How's it going?
It's going great.
Awesome. We were talking a little bit before the show, and I'm excited to hear where this is going to go. You told me a few things, and you shared some photos beforehand, and it really sounds like some interesting stuff, but I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Ronda. And it sounds like this is going to start way back when you were a little kid. You had stuff going on.
Yeah, I was 5 or 6 years old whenever it all started. I was born and raised in Rogers, Arkansas, and my mother is from Rogers, and my biological father was from Eldorado, Arkansas. And in the summers, I would go and stay sometimes with my grandparents in Eldorado, and sometimes I would stay with my aunt in Rogers. And in Eldorado, Arkansas, with my grandma and grandpa Calloway, they lived on a highway, and they had a big property. They lived off the land. They had 2 big gardens that went all the way down to the timber. They had a timber line all the way around their property. And Grandpa Calloway had rules that were strictly enforced. He didn't allow for children. He said no children were to be outside by themselves, period. They had to be under the direct supervision and under the eyes of an adult at all times. And I snuck out one time because I was always going outside, and he got caught. And he told me no more. I wasn't to be outside, period, because there was razorbacks out there in the tree lines, and if I got back in there, they could get me. And I just loosely ignored it. But at night, what was interesting was a lot of times at night, he would be in the back of the house, off the back porch, and he would be shooting into the tree line and cussing and just ranting and raving and carrying on like someone was trying to get into the yard that he didn't want there. And I asked him what he was shooting at, and he said he was shooting at armadillos because they was getting in his worm bed. And I said, I have never seen an armadillo that you shot. And he said, but in order for the way he was shooting, there had to have been an army of armadillos coming up in the yard. I just didn't find it believable, even though I was a child. I've always been, how do I put it? I understood more than what most children did. I paid attention to what was going on around me. I just knew. I could feel things. It was just different. And one year, whenever I was, what time was it? In 1973 or 1974, I was 5 or 6 years old. My great aunt, she took me out into the gardens, and she took me down the peanut aisle where they was growing peanuts, and was explaining to me how peanuts grew under the ground. We didn't go all the way down, but we got halfway down to the tree line, and all of a sudden we heard something, and it was walking towards us, and my aunt all of a sudden stopped grabbed me and put my legs around her waist and my arms around her neck and said, "Don't you dare let go of me. I have to run as fast as I can and get to the house now." And she took off running to the house. And of course, while she was running to the house, I was looking behind her, and I was looking in the tree line. And in the tree line, there was a big black shadow in that tree line. It didn't come out of the tree line, but it was there. And I wasn't scared at the time, but it was enough that it scared me. I got to thinking about it. And my real dad, what my biological father, said he was always obsessed with anything to do with Bigfoot. And now that I'm an older adult now, I can understand why. Because on that property, there had to have been Bigfoot that he knew. He either experienced them or he's seen them or both. Because from my own personal experience, that when you see them or you experience them, it changes you. And it caused him to be obsessed with anything with Bigfoot that was on the TV or books or whatever. He was all in it. Whenever I was 5 or 6, when I was 8, I think I was 8 years old when my mom left him and got a divorce, and I didn't see him anymore. But every time we went to Arkansas, I didn't sleep. My mom would fight with me, want me to go to sleep, and I would never sleep. I was up in the middle of the night looking out the windows and watching the tree lines, because my grandma Jones lived by the Howler. It's down at the base of the mountains over by Beaver Lake. She lives over by Beaver Lake. And I would play down in the Howler and stuff during the day, and I would hear like footsteps, and I would turn around to see if there was anything there, and there wasn't ever nothing there. But every once in a while, I got a creepy feeling, and I would go back up to the house, and I would go back down there. But at night, I would watch the tree lines and out the windows, because I had a sense that there was something there. But I couldn't see it, and it was terrifying to me. And that just went on for my whole childhood. But there wasn't any more experiences or anything until I was older. Whenever I became an adult, I moved back to Arkansas, and there wasn't anything that went on then. And then, let's see, in 1993, 1994, 1993, 1994, my husband and I, my first husband, or my second husband, and I moved to the country out on a road called Sunnyvale Road in Bramer, Missouri. It's in Caldwell County. It's out by the conservation area in Caldwell County. And my ex-husband, I used to tell him all the time, he was a hunter, and I tell him all the time, you need to be watching what you're doing, because there are Bigfoot out there. And he would laugh at me, and he would make fun of me and really ridiculed me over it. He said he'd been hunting all his life and never seen or heard of such a thing. There wasn't no such thing. And I said, I'm telling you, there is a such thing. I seen one when I was a kid. But we'd moved out there on Sunnyvale, and it was a a double wide trailer on a full basement. And there was off into the back, there was a tree line with a creek, a dried up creek bed. And then on back, there was 2 ponds that was back there, and there was a big field back there. And one night in the middle of the night, it was really hot, and my kids were in bed, and I was sitting at the kitchen table with the window open, reading my Bible, and I heard something out in the back of the house, and there was no lights out there. It was pitch dark, and I couldn't see nothing. But I heard something. It was big. It was a scuffle, and it sounded like something big got taken down out there. All you heard was the scuffle, but there was a pound. It was like something had got pounded on the ground, something big, and it really alarmed me. And the next morning, I got up and I got me a pistol, and I went out there and went looking for footprints. I was looking for blood. I was looking for any type of evidence that what I heard. And I didn't find anything. There was nothing, not even a place where the grass was patted down, where something had been laying or whatever had went on, and I never found nothing. And later on, another night, I was sitting again, kids were in bed sleeping. It's the middle of the night. My ex-husband was working nights. So I was there by myself. I had the window open and I was reading my Bible, and my cat was laying on the bar. There was a bar, and the cat was laying on there, curled up, sleeping. And all of a sudden, I heard something downstairs, and I stopped and I listened. And it sounded like someone was ransacking the downstairs, just going through everything. And I'm like, what in the world is going on down there? And all of a sudden, what was down there howled. And it was a howl that brought the hair on the back of my neck standing up, and I had goosebumps, and it sent a chill down my spine. And my cat was fully asleep, rolled up in a ball, sat up and done a roar like a lion, like on Lion King. That cat had never done that before, and he'd never done that after. And the whole time that thing was howling, the cat was doing that, and then it all of a sudden stopped, and everything went quiet, and there was nothing else. I went and got a gun, and I sat all night long because the only thing I could think of was, what if it gets upstairs? Because there was a door down at the end that had stairs that come upstairs through the floor and the next room over. So I sat there with a chair watching that door and watching the front door with a gun all night until it got light. And my ex-husband come in the next morning, and I finally went and laid down, went to sleep. And he asked me, he said, what went on here? Because I had a really weird feeling whenever I come in. And I said, let me tell you about my night. I went downstairs to look at everything, and there was nothing that had been touched. Absolutely nothing. But the door was left open. Now, in order for that door to be opened up, it took hands to open it. And I knew exactly what had been down in that basement. I knew what it was. But what really bothered me was nothing looked like it had been touched. And then Ron Moorhead comes up, and he had the same thing happen in his camp. And I just found that out just a year or so ago by listening to him. But when I heard him give that explanation of what went on in that camp, I was like, that's exactly what happened to me in my basement when I lived out on Sunnyvale.
Can you, just for listeners that aren't overly familiar, can you talk real quick about what part exactly that Ron Moorhead had happened to him that you found was similar to what happened in your basement?
Oh, whenever they went to bed at night, it was sounded like they was going through their camp, like they was ransacking the camp. That they would get up the next morning, there wouldn't be nothing touched. Everything would be the same.
Thank you. And you're saying that this was happening this was inside your house, not outside. This was inside.
Yeah, yes, it was in the basement. It was downstairs in the basement. And the only thing that was keeping it from coming upstairs was a door that I was hoping was shut and locked. But the only lock that was on it was one of them little locks that that goes through the eye. That's the only lock that door had on it. So it could have very easily opened that door and come up the stairs. Yeah, I was terrified. Here I was by myself, no phone, no vehicle, and the closest neighbor was a half mile down the road. And I had something in my basement that had howled and sent my cat to acting crazy.
Have you heard any sound that comes even close to that howl that you heard that night?
Oh, yeah. It was Bigfoot.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. My goodness.
Oh, yeah. I knew what it was. There was no doubt in my mind. I knew what it was because there had been stories that they were out on the conservation land. I keep a pretty close ear to the ground, listening to stories that people were telling, because where there's smoke, there's fire. It may not be the exact truth, but there are some truths to it. And I had been hearing some things like there was some people that was working with bulldozers, and it was about the evening time, and they were getting ready to stop, and out come a Bigfoot from the from the tree line and scared them, and they ran to their vehicle and was trying to get out, and it got dark on them and they couldn't find their way out, and there was a person in their house seeing the headlights in their pasture, wanting to know what was going on, and went out there, and there was these two men that was trying to find a way out, and told them what had happened. And there was another guy that a friend of mine came and got me and her to go to a party. He was having a party out at his place, and it was way out in the middle. I couldn't even tell you what town it was. It was on the other side of Cowgill, Missouri. It was just one of them little old towns that just in the middle of nowhere. And he stopped and said, I want you guys to hurry up and get in the house, and we'll leave the headlights on so you can get in. And so why don't you just come in with us? He said, no, there's Bigfoot out here. I want to make sure you get in the house. And I'm like, what? And he said, no, there are. He said, they walk around the house at night. They're always trying to look in the windows. They're always knocking on the side of the house. Okay. So I knew they were in the area. And that's the reason why I was telling my ex-husband, you need to be careful because they are here.
And this is all in Caldwell County, Missouri, an hour northeast of Kansas City, pretty much.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a little town. And then we moved back to town, and I had nightmares, horrible nightmares after that. Horrible nightmares. They were so vivid that I would wake up and I would be in a cold sweat. I wouldn't even know where I was at. It took me a little bit to realize that I was in my bedroom in my bed and I was okay. That's how vivid they were after that. For years after that, I had that problem. And then there wasn't any more else that went on except for I went hunting. I tried going hunting with my ex-husband, and he would leave me, and he took me out at his uncle's place, and I didn't like his uncle's place. I kept telling him, I don't like it out here. I don't want to be out here. And he said, no. I said, no, I'm telling you they're out here. I'm telling you. No, I'm not. I don't want to be out here. And his uncle would tell me, you need to come out here and get some apples off these trees, because if you don't get these apples, the deer are going to get them overnight. They're going to be gone. And I said, there ain't no way then that deer are going to eat that many apples in a night. And he said, no, they'll all be gone in one night. The ones up in the top of the tree too, no, the deer couldn't reach them clear up there. But I knew what could. And I didn't like being out there. And he left me, and I just went and walked myself back to the truck and sat and waited for him. Because, no, I could feel him. No, I wasn't doing no more of it. And I never went out hunting with him no more after that. And then there wasn't no more activity. No more. I've always been taking my kids camping, and we go for long walks, and I've always been outdoors. And in 2013, I left my ex-husband, and I moved into a little place in Hamilton, Missouri. And it too is not too far from Sunnyvale, over by the conservation land. And my landlord that I moved in, she rented me her basement, and we became pretty good friends. And she told me, she said, I want you to be careful out here because I seen a bear. And I said, what? She said, I seen a bear. And I said, we don't have bear around here. She says, I'm telling you, I know what I seen, and it was a bear. And I said, where did you see this bear? She said, it was down the road. And I said, okay. I said, what was you doing when you seen this bear? She said, I was just driving down, coming home. She said, and I seen it down by the trees. It's down that creek. There's a creek down there. She says, and I seen that bear down there. She said, I stopped and I backed up, but it disappeared. She said, I don't know where it went, but I seen a bear. And I said, you didn't see no bear. She said, yeah. I said, no, you didn't see no bear. But you couldn't convince her of anything, so I just kept it to myself. I knew what it was. I knew a bear. If you would have seen a bear, you would have stayed. It's not going to just disappear because a human's there. They don't care. But I knew what did, and it's there one minute and gone the next. So I'm like, okay. I just let her believe that she had a bear. And then she told me to watch the coyotes. Then she said she'd seen a wolf out there. And I said, oh, you just seen no wolf out here. There ain't no wolf. She said, I saw what I seen. She said, it was a big dog. It was a big wolf. She said, I know what it was that I seen. I said, well, whatever. And then her dog, I noticed her dog every night was wanting to go run off every night at the same time. Every night at the same time. I said, Inga, did you know where your dog is going? She said, well, I don't know. She said, he always comes back. And I said, no, that dog is going every night at the same time. There's something coming on this property that he is trying to keep off of this property. That's the reason why he's doing that. And you need to figure out what he's doing, because if you don't, he could get hurt or killed. You don't know what's going on. You're telling me that there's a bear out here and you got this dog running off like this. So, oh, ain't nothing going to happen to him. He always comes back. I said, all right. And then my dog started wanting to do the same thing, but he was just a little poodle. He wasn't going nowhere, and I had him chained up anyway. But I had been living there for maybe 3 or 4 months, and I started working at the nursing home in Hamilton, Missouri, and I started working the night shift. And at night, I was driving down the way she'd seen this bear, and I started smelling. And it wasn't every night, just every once in a while. And I was like, stinks. That's putrid. I don't know, but sewage is going to be all that you're going to smell it more just once in a blue moon. And I thought, I don't know what's going on there, but I'm going on. And I got to where I quit going that way because it was creepy. It was really dark, and it just seemed, no, I just didn't want to go down that way. So I started going the other way because I felt better going the other way. And then I come home from work, and Inga started telling me, she said, need to watch whenever you come home from work at night, or when you leave for work at night. And I said, why? She said, the neighbors down the street, their little boy was home by him. Somebody was trying to open the doors and get into the house. And I said, what? She said, yeah. She said, it was an intruder trying to get into the house. It was trying the doorknobs to get in. And I said, I'm like, okay, this is getting real. I know what does that. And it scared the little boy. But later on, I started asking, the cats started disappearing out of the yard. You have all kinds of cats, all kinds of them. And I said, do you know where your cats are going? Because your cats are disappearing. You don't have as many cats as you did. She said, I don't know. She said, I'm not paying no attention. And I said, well, you need to pay attention. She said, they're just out there, they're out there catching mice in the field. She said, I know it is. But then she started telling me about in the middle of the night when she was sleeping, something large had gotten up on the front porch. It was large enough that it shook the side of the house and woke her up. And she said her explanation of that was a bobcat had gotten up on the railing and had jumped down onto the patio, the wood patio, the deck, after the cats. And I'm like, okay, so you got something now that is now on the patio here, and it has shook the house whenever that sounds to me like they're coming up on the house, but never told her nothing because she wouldn't have believed me anyway. And then I started working the 3 to 11 shift. I got a new position to work in. I was working 3 to 11 shifts, so I was going in at 3, coming home at 11. That's when it got real interesting. I come home at night, and they were surrounding me. They were making animal noises at me, owls, the owl sounds, and it sounded like it's coming from the ground. And I'm like, okay, owls are really they're not alarm birds. And it was always going on when I get out of the van, or out of the SUV. I would get out and it would start, and it scared me. And I'd get that creepy feeling like I was prey. There was something there. So I hurry up and get into the house. And I told Inga, I said, Inga, you need to put some lights out there because I'm coming in at night and something's going on out here. I need some lights. And she said she didn't want to do that. And okay. So I went and bought a solar light that were motion detectors that was really bright. And I installed it above the door. I lived in the basement, and that's where I come in and out, was the basement. And the patio, it had a big concrete patio. And I started driving my SUV up there and parking it on the patio so I'd be right there by the door and get right in the door. Because every night that I come home, this is going on. And one night I got out of my SUV, I shut the door, and I heard thump, and I'm like, oh crap, now they're throwing things. I knew that it hit the middle of the yard. I knew about I heard where it hit. And I'm like, okay, whatever they threw is big, and I'm not investigating this right now. I'm not doing it. I'm getting in the house. So I hurried up and I got in the house, locked the doors, made sure that everything, all the windows were shut and everything. And I went to my room, which there was no windows in my room. I could shut the door, and I felt like I was somewhat safe. I got up the next morning and went outside, and there was a big chunk of wood that I had cut up and threw out into a little pasture that was on the other side of the yard on the side of the house. In order for that to be thrown, it had to have had hands, and it had to have been something big, because this was a big chunk of wood. And as far as it was thrown, oh yeah. And I knew, there was no doubt in my mind what was going on. And I'm like, okay, there's a whole family of them out here. I quit going for walks. I would go for walks because I would walk, nothing for me to walk a mile down the road and a mile back. And I quit doing that because I could feel like I was being followed and I was being watched. And I kept looking around in the directions that I thought it was coming from, and that I could never see nothing. Of course, I wasn't going to see anything. And back then, I thought they were flesh and blood creatures back then. But now I understand that they have things that they can do. I'm like, no wonder I could never see them. But then one night I come home from work. I come home and Inga says, I need you up here. I need you now. And I said, why? What's going on? She said, Bozo, he stepped on a stick and it's went clear through his foot. And my first thought was, what? I've never heard of that before. And I'm like, okay, I'm coming. So I went up there and he was whining whenever he seen me. And here, let me see your paw. And I looked at his paw. And I turned his paw over. And I looked at her and I said, okay, Inga. I said, this is where you wake up. I said, this was shoved through the top of this dog's foot, and it is a spear. This has been sharpened into a spear. This has been sharpened, and it's been shoved through the top of this dog's foot and broke off at the top. I said, whatever he's been chasing after fought back this time. And I can't do anything about this. You're going to have to take him to the vet in the morning. And she took him to the vet, and the vet said the same thing I did. He told her, this was shoved through this dog's foot. And it was sharpened. It was a sharpened stick. Had to have hands in order to sharpen a stick. Had to have hands to shove it through the top of this dog's foot. And it had to have some pretty good aim, too. And then broke it off. And from what I know now, she is really lucky that the dog even lived, that they even let the dog live. But after she had the dog to the vet, she brought him home. He put him on some antibiotics and told her, do not let him out running around because you don't want him to get an infection in his foot. Take him outside and on a leash and let him go to the bathroom or put him on a chain so that he's not running around. So she did. And I was at work. I had to work the night shift. I had to work over. And I came home the next morning and Inga says, hey, I need you to listen to what I have to tell you. And I said, what? She said, this morning at about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, Bozo was going nuts. He wanted to go outside so bad he couldn't stand it. And she said, I thought he had the runs because he'd been on this antibiotic. She said, well, I got up and I got dressed and I put him on his leash and I took him out. She said, he was sniffing everywhere. She said, he took me out to the driveway, took me past the driveway, and he was taking me down towards the little pond. When you come into the drive, there was a pond there on the left-hand side of the drive, and it was surrounded by trees. She said, when he just about got me down halfway down to the pond, she said, something come at me. She said, it was screaming at me. She said, I could feel it in my chest vibrate. She said, terrified me. The dog was trying to get to whatever it was. She says, I was trying to get the dog. She said, I finally got him inside the house. And I said, why didn't you let the dog go? Do you not realize that you could have been killed? Whatever that was coming at you, which I already knew what it was. I said, let me go downstairs. I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to come back up. I'll be right back. I want you to listen and tell me if any of these things sounds like what you heard. So I went down and come back up, and I had my computer, and I was playing some Bigfoot sounds for her. I played the first one. She said, no. I played the second one. She said, no. I played the third one. She said, I'm tired of listening to it. I don't hear it no more. That right there told me by her reaction and by the look on her face and her body language, that was what she'd heard. And I was like, okay, she's got a whole bunch of these Bigfoot hanging around out here. So I went digging around and come to find out that in Daviess County, which is bordering Hamilton, Caldwell, and Daviess, which is bordering, there had been a Bigfoot sighting. And in fact, a BFRO researcher had come down to investigate with his daughter, and they had seen a juvenile and an adult Bigfoot in the area that they were investigating. That's right there on our back door. And I'm like, why are they here? I didn't understand why they were there. This is the funny part. I realized that I was using an alarm to wake me up to go to work, and it was a Bigfoot yell. And I think they probably heard it and come listen to it.
No way. That's incredible.
And matter of fact, I can send you. I still have it on my phone, and I can send it to you.
Was it like the Ohio Howl, or?
I don't know what it is. It's one that I can't even tell you where I got it from, but I was using it for an alarm clock.
Oh my goodness.
And then all of this crazy happened. That's when all the crazy started happening. But before, they was already there because she was already telling me about the bear, and I knew it wasn't a bear. It couldn't have been a bear.
What's the year that this happened again?
This was in 2013.
Okay, thanks.
And it went on until 2014 when I moved out. I moved to Kansas City. And when I moved to Kansas City, I thought, okay, I'm out of there. There's no more Bigfoot. They are not here. I am not going into Bigfoot area. I'm just fine. No problem. My dog died. My dog that I had passed away in 2021, March 25th of 2021. And I really had a hard time with that. And I ended up buying another little poodle, which is my little dog that I have now. Her name is Rose. And I started going and investigating places to go walk. And I found out that there were nature areas in my area. And I'm like, hey, this is great. Even one of them, not even 2 miles from where I live, has a waterfall. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go there, and I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to take her for a walk, and we're going to have a good time. I went to the one that has the waterfall first, and I pulled in, and I got out of my vehicle, and I started walking down the trail, and I start seeing signs all around me. I'm like, oh, no, there is no way. I am not looking at this. I'm not going to look at it. I don't want to see it. I'm here to have a walk, and that's it. I'm going to enjoy my walk. I'm going to find this waterfall, and I'm going to look at this waterfall, and I'm going to have a good time. So I did. Well, I come out of there, and I got hold of my mother, and I said, Mom, I said, I don't know what to do. I said, here I am. I'm in the city. And she didn't know about what went on in Hamilton. I never told her, but my kids did. I told my kids. But I said, I don't know what it is, but they keep showing up in my life. And I said, they've showed up again here in the city, and right here in the city. I don't know. I was devastated. Here I am. I'm terrified of them, and they keep showing up in my life. Oh, and here's another thing that happened whenever I was at Inga's. I forgot about this one. I walked outside and found my SUV covered in a yellow dust. Covered. It was nowhere else, and it was not parked near a tree to where it could blow pollen. I don't have any idea. It was pollen. Later on, I found out that it was pollen, but my vehicle was covered in it. And it wasn't on the ground. It wasn't on the concrete. It wasn't on the grass. It wasn't on the side of the house. It was only on my SUV. I've always suspected that maybe they did that. But anyway, I was telling my mother, I said, I don't know what to do. They are here, and I'm not going to not go and walk. So I started praying about it, and here comes Scott Carpenter. And when I watched his videos, it gave me a lot of understanding about how they tag people. And I'm like, that must be the reason why they keep showing up in my life everywhere I go. And then that they are in the cities. And I watched his video about where they stay in. Kansas City is full of caves. I had a friend of mine that worked in the caves, and she wanted me to come work there. And she says, at night, it's crazy there. She said, you hear things in the back of this cave. She says, and you don't know what it is. It's the craziest thing you ever heard. She was working in Lee Summit. Well, they was having sightings in Lee Summit. Boy Scouts were going camping, and they were having Bigfoot that was coming into their camps and carrying on. So it's okay. There's caves there. There's caves all over Kansas City. He said they were staying in old abandoned factories. We have lots of old abandoned factories. They like to be around the rivers. We have Missouri River that runs right through here. Yeah, and they like to sit on these nature areas and watch the people. We are their entertainment. That makes sense. I went back to the place that had the waterfall, and it was like they was wanting me to know, hey, we're here. I went to the waterfall, and at the top of that waterfall, and I didn't send you a picture of it, but I have a picture of it. This great big half a tree was right on top of the waterfall. And I looked at that for the longest time, and I thought, okay, where did that come from? Because this creek is not deep enough to push something like that down the creek. And it didn't come rolling down the hill. There was nowhere, because if it would have come rolling down the hill, there would have been, because it was a cut log. It had been cut. Where did it come from? It had to have been carried in. There was no other way for it to be put there. It had to be carried in. This is the only way. I walked up and down that whole creek area, and down at the end, there was no way. You couldn't even tell where it come from. So I went walking on down a ways, and there was a low-lying area, and I was standing there, and I was looking up. I had a feeling. I was looking up, and all of a sudden, I got a headache. And I'm like, okay, I need to get out of here. I told Rose, I said, we're gonna go back and we're gonna go back home. We walked back to the vehicle. When I got almost to the vehicle, the headache quit. It was gone. I'm like, well, that was weird. But I got in the vehicle and I went back home. And the next time I came there, I was walking along, and the log was gone. How it disappeared, I have no idea. I don't know how it got taken out of there, but it was gone. And I walked on my way back to my vehicle. I was walking along, and I've always walked with looking down at my feet, because I was always clumsy when I was a kid, stubbing my feet and tripping over things. And my mom would always tell me, watch where you're walking, watch your feet. So I always walk looking down at the ground. I was looking, and over on the right-hand side of the walkway, I seen a footprint. A bare footprint, a big one. And I'm like, oh, heck no. There's no way. No way. And I walked up on it, and it was there. It was there. It was during the fall season. There would have been nobody walking around bare feet. And it was in such a place that nobody would have realized it. People walking by there all the time, they never would have seen it. It would be somebody like me that has seen these things enough to where when I see it, I know what I'm looking at. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I took a picture of it. And footprints don't, for some reason, they don't really take good pictures. They don't show up very well in pictures. I don't know why, but anytime I find a footprint, it's always a left foot. I don't know why, what the deal is about the left foot, but it's always a left foot. I found footprints 3 or 4 times, and it's always been one. I don't know what's up with that, but since I've been here in the city, it's gotten real, especially in the last 3 years. Let's see, after I went out, I went to another place called Happy Rock, and it's right downtown. It's like a nature area. You can walk a mile out and a mile back. And I heard rock clacking one day. I was walking along, and I was like, okay, I know what I'm hearing. That is not somebody with a hammer. That's rocks being clacked together. It was just 1, 2, 3, but I knew what it was whenever I heard it. And there'd been the first time I had been there, whenever you go far enough, they don't want you to go any further. You can't go any further. You get this intimidated feeling that comes over you, and you just want to go back to where you come from. That happened whenever I was out there. But other than that, ain't nothing else happened in those areas, because I don't go there much anymore. I got COVID in 2022, or no, it was 2021. I got COVID, and I was in the hospital, and I come out with some oxygen, and it took me over a year to get over it. And I felt like I needed to get out and live life, because all I was doing was going to work, coming home, going to my parents, coming home. So I started praying about it, and all of a sudden van life videos started coming up, and I thought, hey, I want to do that. And I had been watching Scott Carpenter, and I'm like, okay, in order to keep them away from because I already know wherever I go, they're going to show up. And so to keep them away from my van at night, I can put lights up around the vehicle. I started out in my SUV, and I outfitted my SUV in whatever I needed. And my first year, which was in 2022, and I decided to go to a lake that's nearby. And my first day there, I knew that they were out there because I had found reports that they had been seen in the area. And I'm like, okay, I know they're out here, so I'm going to do what Scott Carpenter suggested. And I spoke out and I said, I know you're here, and I'm just here to visit. I'm just going to enjoy the atmosphere of the lake. I want to take some walks. I want to enjoy the water. I'm not here to harass you. I'm not here to seek you out. I'm not here to manipulate you or anything. I'm not here to harass you or torment you in any way, shape, or form. And I would appreciate it if you would give me the same courtesy. Please do not be coming up on my camp. Don't be throwing things in my camp. Don't be making animal noises at me. Don't be scaring me. I don't want you to scare me, because I don't want to be made to be afraid and not want to camp anymore. And after I got done, I finished setting up my camp. I got my bed made in the SUV, and I got everything set the way I wanted it. And there's a little pathway that was down from it was right there by my campsite, but it goes down to the water's edge. And I told Rose, I said, come on, we're going to go down here to the water, and we're going to wade in the water for a little bit. So we went down there, and on my path, and I mean on my path, there was a gift. Now, how they got that there Without me seeing them, I had no idea. This was the first time I'd ever experienced anything of this sort. And that log, it was a half of a log, and it had 6 stones. It had 3 on one side and had 3 on the other. And there were 2 feathers in front of it on the right-hand side of it. I sent you a picture of that. That was the first gift that I had ever got from it. In my mind, what I felt whenever I seen this was, okay, they are entering into an agreement with me. They're saying, okay, we agree. And I don't go out there and search them out. I don't go out there, and I told them, it's okay. I understand you're watchers and you like to watch. I don't have a problem with that. Just please keep it at a distance because I don't want to be scared. And I could always feel whenever I was playing with my dog. We play soccer. I have a teaser stick, and I play with her and we play fetch, and we just have a good time. And we go for walks, and we're active. And I just had this feeling that they enjoyed watching us play, which later on I found out that was the case. But that was the first time that I had experienced them out there at that lake, and I'm like, okay, they're out here. And then I started traveling in August of that year, 2022, when I started van life. I got my van, and I fixed my van up, and we had it all. My mother and I had it fixed by February, and I started doing van life in 2023 in March, and I really started going other places then. And let's see. They have left me. Let me get into the pictures that I sent you.
I'm looking at, I'm seeing the gifts that you're referring to earlier, the feathers and the stick and the rocks, which is really incredible.
Yeah, that's what they sent me. That's what they left me that time. Okay, another time whenever I was there, I started camping up by the bathrooms because I wanted to be closer to the bathrooms and not down there around the poison ivy and stuff, because I'm highly allergic to poison ivy and poison oak. So I carry poison ivy and poison oak killer everywhere I go. Well, where I was staying at down by the water, there was a lot of it. So I started staying up by where the bathrooms was, and I always stay at this. As a matter of fact, I go there so much that the people that work there know me. And they all talk about I always stay in this one spot and how I keep it clean there. They watch me, of course, and they know where I'm going to walk. And I was walking along one time, and they had left an old banana that was all black and dried up and put 2 small stones on that. And I'm like, what in the world are 2 white stones mean? What does this mean? I don't understand it. In a podcast somewhere, I had heard somebody was talking, and they was talking about when you get that they knew the Bigfoot ways. They had been taught by them, and 2 small stones meant friendship. I found out later. That was later on down, and I was like, that's pretty interesting. So I figured that's what they was trying to convey to me there. They have left me gifts at my workplace on the rail beside the back door. There's some steps that goes up, and they leave them right there on that rail. At first, whenever it started happening, I kept asking everybody at work, were your kids here and left these stones out there on the rail? Or did you guys lay these stones out here on the rail? And they say, no, we don't even know how they got there. They just appeared. And then I realized what was going on. But I had went to lots of places in my van. I went to Rolla to see my son. My son was going to college at Rolla. He was going to school to be a civil engineer. And I went there to visit him 2 years in a row. The first year I went, he took me to a place. What is that place called? Oh, man. It's East something. It's right there by Rolla. It's East Side Garden, or it's a natural spring. It's part of the Mark Twain. area. It's a day area. See if I can find it. Lane Spring Recreation Area. That's what it's called. He took me there because he loved to go there and he wanted me to experience it. When we was there, I felt weird and I'm like, okay, I'm okay because I'm with my son. But I enjoyed it so much that the next day I went back by myself, and I did go back by myself and I was okay, but I was really cautious. I kept looking around. I had my head on a swivel. And I thought, I was fine. There was other people there, so I thought, I'm okay. The next year I went back and I wanted to camp out there because they have camping out there. And I drove out there and I drove the camping areas, and there was other people there because I won't camp anywhere unless there's other people there, because I know that they're going to come around and I don't want to be by myself and have them doing things. I just don't want to put myself in that position. So I was watching and I thought I could stay out here, and I went to go fill out the paper and I just had a feeling. I don't know why, I just had a feeling. And I thought I'll go back to the day area and I'll think about it. I need to think about it a little more if I want to stay out here or not tonight. I took Rose and we went down to the spring, and people trout fish in that spring. It's a natural fed spring. And it's really nice. It's all stone at the bottom, and it's nice cold water all year. And those are places that I seek out a lot because I really like the clear water. I decided to go back and try to fill out the paperwork. I had the money in the envelope and was getting ready to put it in there. And above there, it said bears. There was bears in the area. And I'm like, oh, crap. I don't have what I need for bears. I don't have I don't have anything to ward them off. I don't have the bear spray. I don't have what I need. So I'm not going to stay here the night. But I went back to the spring area, and when I was down there, Rose and I was playing with fetch with the water. I was throwing the ball, and she was going after it, and it got out of her reach, and she didn't have her life jacket on. And I said, come back to me. We'll wait for it to go down, and we'll go down and get it where we could reach. And she came back to me, and we was walking down, and the ball reached a shallow area where I could walk right over and get it. And when I reached over to get that ball, I heard a tree break. I'm like, and my head flipped. I'm like, oh no, I ain't staying. I definitely ain't staying here now. I was down there by myself. There was not a soul around, not one soul around me. And I said, Rose, we're going to go back to the day area. We need to get up out of here because I know exactly what that is. That's a sign of aggression. And I'm not going to be here by myself. So I hightailed it back to the day area, and there was people that had just come in, and we was talking and visiting, and they had a little girl and was playing with Rosie, playing fetch with her. And after a while, they said, we're going to go down to the spring area. And I said, I'm going to leave. And I told Rose, let's go see what Dusty's doing, see if he's home from school yet. I was driving on my way out, and there is no gravel roads. There is none. It is all paved. And it's all treed. And driving, I drove to the highway, and I looked both ways. There was no vehicles coming, not one vehicle. And when I went to turn left, a rock, it wasn't a big rock, but it was a rock, come flying out of the tree line and hit my vehicle. And I'm like, I guess that was my sign not to come back. Let alone they doing the tree break thing, but they're throwing rocks at me too.
Were you able to see how big a rock it was?
No, I heard it. I heard it hit.
Sure.
It hit the corner of my windshield, and I'm like, and then right after I got on the vehicle, a car come over the hill. But yeah, I'm like, nah, I probably won't be going back there. And I got to thinking about it, and sometimes, according to Robin McCrae, I listen, Robin McCrae and Arla Williams has helped me a great deal in what I have been going through. And I understand, I've gotten a little more understanding. And I'm thinking that me being there was not good for me, and they was probably just saying, hey, get out of here. You don't need to be here because this is not the area for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that definitely does. And I've talked to both of those individuals. They're very smart about the subject for sure.
Yeah. And so I got to thinking about it, and I don't think it was really so much aggression as it was saying, hey, you don't need to be here because this is dangerous for you. Kind of like looking out for me. So
exactly.
So I think of it in that way, because it finally dawned on me after Scott Carpenter was they've never hurt me. And it never really dawned on me. The whole time I was in terror of them, they had never hurt me, and it never really hit my mind that way. So now I've gone from being in fear to being intrigued, because now they have flipped it, and now I know they're around me all the time now. So I go to these places now, and just not too long ago, I went to Baxter Springs, Kansas on a road trip. And I was going to, they have a park there that they have a camping area in the back of the park, and it's first come, first serve. So I had went there to stay the night, and I got out. It was getting about close to dark, and I got out and got my van all set up, and I took Rose to go for a walk so she could go to the bathroom. And I like to. There was a waterfall there. There was a river. It was on a river. It's called Spring River, and I was admiring atmosphere that I was in, and all of a sudden I thought I need to introduce myself. So I said, hey, I know there's probably some of you out here. I said, my name is Ronda, and I am from out of state. I'm just passing through. I'm just staying the night. I'll be gone tomorrow. And all of a sudden I hear, welcome. We no bother, but we watch. I'm like, okay, you go ahead, you watch. And yeah, they were around. I could feel them. You just get that feeling. And I was playing ball with Rose and letting her get some exercise for the night. And we got up the next morning, and I made coffee, and I just told them thank you for the hospitality, and I went on about my way.
Was that a voice that you had heard?
They talk telepathically. They talk
telepathically. Yeah, mind speak. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is something new for me. It's Robin McCrae has helped a whole lot with that, because I'll tell you about Jocko in a little bit. We'll get into him.
Okay, yeah.
He's the one that's opened me up to it.
You were just about to talk about Carthage, I think.
Yeah, I went through Joplin and Carthage. I often go on road trips, and I'll make a circle. So I went down through Baxter Springs, down through Galena, Kansas, and I crossed back over into Missouri and come up Joplin. I stayed the night in Joplin and at a creek, but I wasn't around any tree areas or anything. There was really nothing there. And I went to Carthage, and I went out to the Precious Moments Chapel. And you go in the back, and there's a tree area back up in there. It's way out in the middle of nowhere. And I was standing there, and I kept backing up. And all of a sudden I heard a thump. I'm like, turning my head around. I'm like, okay, I know you're there. I think you're just letting me know that, hey, I'm here. You're getting too close. Because if you get to, I've noticed, I've heard them stomp, and I used to not know how to explain the stomp until Miguel. I watched Sasquatch Theory, and Miguel had explained it perfectly. I couldn't have put it better myself. It sounds like somebody throwing a piece of wood down on the ground, a large piece of wood down on the ground. That's what it sounds like. I've gone to Perry State Park. That one was I got growled at there and woke up the next morning with a tree break above my van. Matter of fact, I sent you the picture of that tree break above my van. There's two together, and you can see that it's fresh. I took a close enough picture that it's fresh. That right above my van, there, we first got into is Perry State Park is what it's called. It's Perry Lake in Kansas, and I stayed there for the night. I went there in the afternoon, and we were staying the whole day there. And when I first got there, I was staying in a primitive area. There was other people there, and I thought, okay, I'm going to stay here tonight. And there was a bunch of trash in my area, and I said, I got to clean this up. So I cleaned it up, and there was a dumpster at the top of the hill. And so I walked up to the dumpster to throw the trash in, and when I threw it, it overshot the dumpster. So I had to walk around the dumpster and pick it up. Well, when I walked around the dumpster and I picked it up, I heard a growl behind me. And I said, okay, I got out of there. I was like, no, we ain't going to do this. No, I'm not doing this. Everybody had left, so I went and found a different place to stay. And I backed my van in, and there's trees behind me. And I woke up the next morning, and there was that tree break. And it was not one, it was two. And there was no storms or high winds or anything that would do that. That was done in the night. And how I didn't hear it, I have no idea. But yeah, that was I woke up to that. I'm like, okay, let alone did you growl at me, but I don't know what the tree break means above my van. See, that was in Kansas. And I went and done some research on that lake, and come to find out that some professors were walking in one of their trail areas and found footprints out there. But that's the only thing that had been reported out there. And my son tells me when I said where I was at, he said something about don't let the Sasquatch get you or something like that. I said, don't worry, there's only been one report out here. Yeah, that X, that great big X, that's the one that's out at that lake that I go to. There's a road that goes back to the shelter areas, and there's that big X. And back in July 24 of this year, it was really hot. It was that day. It was so hot. And Rose and I was driving around with the air conditioning going. And usually people aren't out in the middle. This was on a Wednesday. So in the middle of the week, people aren't out. And when it's really hot, people aren't out. And so I know that, but then again, when they do things intentionally from what I understand. But I had been thinking, if I seen one in the distance, I think I would be okay. That particular day, I went driving back in the back where the shelters were, and I seen a man. From where I was at, it was a shelter that was way on down, and I specifically seen a man, and I was thinking, is that a man? And I kept asking myself, is that a man? Because it looked like a man that had a very beautiful tan. It was tan color. It had very beautiful tan. And this is the crazy part is I thought this man was sweeping the shelter. Now, why would a man be sweeping the shelter down there? And then it dawned on me, there's no car down there. There was absolutely no car down there. And I'm like, is that a man that I'm looking at? And then it dawned on me, this man didn't have clothes on. And then all of a sudden it clicked. That's a Bigfoot. So I was trying to whip my van around because I was driving very slow. And this was like, I had probably a good 15, 20 seconds. I got a really pretty good eye from a distance. I'm like, what would a man, and I thought, by the time I get my van turned around and get there, it's going to be gone if it's a Bigfoot. If it's a man, it's going to still be there. That was my thinking. Okay, if that was really a man, the man is still going to be there. But if it's Bigfoot, it's going to disappear. It's not going to be there. And sure enough, it was gone whenever I got back. And what I seen was 7.5, 8 foot tall. And I did the measurements. I measured, and sure enough, it's about 8 foot tall. And I'm like, okay, I plainly seen this. Well, last time I was at the lake, I was driving back there, and there was an actual person down there. It was a man in a car. He got out of the car. I watched him walk because in my interest, I was like, what I seen compared to what I'm seeing now. I was doing a comparison. What I seen plainly. And it looked like a man that was sweeping the floor. The movements, they sway. I'm like, that's the reason why I was thinking I was seeing a man that was sweeping the floor, because he was swaying. I think what was going on was he or she, because it had its back to me, he or she was going through the trash because there was a trash can there. But it really, kind of the adrenaline wore off. And this was what was weird, was I was going back to my campsite, and I was trying to calm down. I was calm, but I was coming down off the adrenaline, and all of a sudden I got this weird feeling. It was like a wave of pure, unadulterated love wash from my head down my body. And the only word that could come to my mind was beautiful. I'm like, wow, that was really cool. But when I started coming down off of that, the rush of what had happened to me, and it was finally sinking in, I got really tired. So I left the lake and went home early. I usually go home on Thursday morning, but I went home on Wednesday evening. I just wanted someplace cool, and I wanted a comfortable place to lay down and sleep in the cool because of what had happened. It wasn't that I was afraid. It was just, it was a lot. It's a lot whenever you see them like that, especially out in the open. It doesn't happen in daylight, out in the open.
Yeah, that's a pretty rare event, pretty special event too. Yeah.
I went down there after the sighting. I went straight down there, and I sat there in my van, and I kept looking for a person to be walking around that fit the description of what I seen, or a boat be going away from the shore that with somebody in it that fit that description. But then when I really questioned myself until I seen that man down there, and he was sitting underneath the shelter, and the only thing I could see was his red hat. That's the only way I knew he was down there. But what I seen plainly. I plainly seen it. So it was large, and it was as tall as the shelter, and it was naked. It was a naked, beautiful man with a beautiful tan. That's the only way I could describe it, was a beautiful tan, because it was that color. That's what color it was. It was pretty special. I thought it was pretty special anyway.
Oh, I'm sure that's a memory that will stick with you forever.
Oh, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget the date.
Yeah.
It was 1:30 in the afternoon. It was 1:30 and 1:45 in the afternoon. That's what time it was. I'll never forget it. I called my kids and was telling them about it, and they just, yeah, whatever, Mom. I raised my children to know about it, and my third son has experienced one, and my youngest son has seen one, not even 5 miles from where he now lives. He was driving home from his girlfriend's house at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and he calls me, and Mom, you're not going to believe what I seen. And I said, what did you see? He said, I seen a Bigfoot. He come out of the tree line and was hauling across this field and disappeared in the tree line on the other side. And it was a moonlit night, and he plainly seen what he was seeing. I mean, he plainly seen it, and he'll still tell. I asked him. I went to, like I said, I could feel him. And when I went to, he got married, and their first year that they had a Halloween thing going on. It was a harvest party, and I went. They asked me to be there, so I went down the same road. And when I got in that area, I could feel it. And when I got to his place, I pulled him aside and I said, Colt, I said, that foot sighting that you seen, I said, did you see it in this field? And he said, yeah, that's the field. It's not even 5 miles from where he lives now. And I've told him that he needs to be careful out there because he has 2 children now. And I told him, you don't ever let them babies outside to play by themselves, ever. and you need to be watching your barn. He has a big red barn. And I told him, you need to be watching that barn because they like to get up in the barns, and he don't ever watch that barn. He don't even care about that barn. And I'm like, you need to be caring about that barn. Yeah, when I've been out there, one night I went and stayed at his place. He lives out in the country, and his dog won't leave my van at night whenever I'm there. And she was out there barking 3 o'clock in the morning. And she was looking out towards where the barn was, and she was wagging her tail like, I'm friendly, but this is my place. It was like she was looking at a person. It was like there was a person out there, not an animal. Whenever a dog sees an animal, they're going to usually give chase to the animal and chase it off. The way she was looking was like it was a person, and I'm like, okay, they're out there. Okay, they're out there. So anymore, it's okay, they're out there. But I keep telling him, you got to watch. Don't be letting the kids out there by themselves. Stockton Lake. Okay, this is the other one. I went to Stockton Lake on one of my expeditions, my road trips. And out there, I have a decal over the back of my van that says "Staying in Faith." And I'd made a decal, and I had sprayed it on there, but I hadn't went over it with a paintbrush yet to smooth it out and make it look nice. I was at Stockton Lake. It was extremely hot, and Rose was laying down under a shade tree, and I had some music going, and I thought, I'm going to get up there in the back of my van. I'm going to paint this. I had bought the paint and stuff to do it with, and my mom would give me the paintbrushes. I was up there, and I wasn't paying a bit of attention. Usually I could feel them when they're around. And when I got there, and I backed my van in, I looked back there, and I thought, yep, they're here. Okay, whatever. I know they're here. Big deal. I'm just going to move on with my life. And I had no idea that they was back there watching me. And I told Rose when I got done, I said, come on. I said, let's take the trash, because I always take my trash to the dumpster at night because I don't want it in my van to attract coons or whatever could try to get in the van. Whenever I put her on her leash, and I seen something out of the corner of my eye, I'm like, what in the world? And they had left a paintbrush on the corner of the grill in the middle of my campsite. Now, how they got that there without me seeing them, I have no idea, but it was there. And it was an old paintbrush that had hardly any bristles, and it had paint on it. I guess that was their contribution. They enjoyed what I was doing so much that they gave me a brush to use. They were paying such close attention to what I was doing that they seen that I had a paintbrush in my hand, and they had one and wanted to gift it to me. And I still have that paintbrush. I keep it in my van. That was pretty cool. But whenever I went back home, when I went to work, I had a hitchhiker from Stockton Lake. I know that's where it come from.
Oh, really? Oh, man.
Yeah. I worked 3 to 11, 11 to 7, but that night I had went into work later, and it was dark, and I was in the kitchen cooking, and my clients were in bed, and I was in the kitchen. I had music going, and I was cooking and getting things ready for my weekend, and I was doing dishes, and all of a sudden, in front of my face, there was a knuckle wrap on the window in front of my face. I sucked air and I backed up, and I was like, oh, heck no. No, this cannot be happening. And I went in to check on one of my clients, and I went into the room. I stepped into the room of the one that's in the back, and on his window was another knuckle wrap on 2 knocks on the window, letting me know they knew where I was at in the house. And I'm like, oh, this cannot be happening. And I went into the bed, went back in the kitchen, and I was doing dishes. I went back to doing some dishes, and again, it happened right in front of my face, right in that window. And at that time, I said, in the name of Jesus, you do not belong here, and you need to leave right now. You go in Jesus' name. And there was nothing else that happened for a good long while. But then In the middle of the night one night, my dog was laying on the carpet in the living room. I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, something hit the side of the house so hard it rattled the windows. And my dog running up out of that floor and got up on the couch and stood there in front of the door, staring at the door, growling and mumbling at the door. She stood there for a good long while before she finally settled down after that. And I was like, oh, we're hitting the side of the house. I'm like, you can't be having this. And I went out the next day, and I said, I don't want you hitting on the side of the house no more. You don't need to be doing that. It scared me. It scared my dog. I don't want no more of that. And so never did that again. But one morning I told Rose, I said, I'm going to go take our stuff out to the van. It was still dark outside. It was during the transition time. It was like the fall. And I heard a knock on the front door on the front patio. And so I was 2 knocks. Just like that. I'm like, okay, I'm not going out there till it gets light. I went out there and I said, no more. I don't want you doing all this stuff. It scares me. I don't like it. It scares me. And so they don't knock on the windows anymore even though now it wouldn't bother me. But back then, whenever all this first started, it bothered me. And then here come Robin McCrae and Arla Williams. And it's okay. I don't need to be afraid of them. They haven't hurt me. They're not going to hurt me. And anytime I've asked them to not do something, they've been gracious enough to not do it anymore when I've asked them not to. And then Robin McCrae says, oh, you want pictures of them? All you got to do is go take random pictures, and if they're there, they'll show up. So here we are. I went out there. I thought, well, I'm going to test this theory out. So I went out my back door, and I started taking some pictures. And sure enough, there they were. There was a whole family of them out there. I'm like, wow. So I sent you some of the pictures. There's a baby up in the tree, and there was another one that's in the bush. And the one that's in the bush I wouldn't have seen had it not been the glow of the eyes. And I got to really looking at it, and you can see the hairline. And then there's the other one that was hidden. You can see his eyebrow and the top of his head. And I call him the little peeker. And and so I started taking pictures. And I sent you the one of the Neanderthal. He looks like a Neanderthal.
Yes. Yep. I see that one. Yeah.
Yeah. You can see the scars on his face and his nose and his lip, his chin, his ear. He looks pretty intimidating there, doesn't he?
So these are different than the Jocko ones, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jocko, he's the one he's bold. And I've gotten more than one picture of him. And the first picture that I got of him, I was so thrilled. And I said, wow, I have this picture. Is plainly, you can see his skin, his leathery skin. You can see his hairline. If you really zero in, you can see his hair, the texture of his hair. And I was really thrilled. And so I needed to give him a name. So I thought, I'm going to name him John. I'm going to call him Big John Henry, because when I did the measurements, about 14 foot where it was standing, about 14 foot. I'm like, okay, I'm going to call him Big John. And I started calling him Big John. And every time I looked at that picture, I thought, oh, that's Big John. Pretty special picture. And one day I was in the house and I heard, no John, Jocko. And I'm like, okay, that's just my imagination. I dismiss things as my imagination. I'm like, okay, that's just my imagination. I'm just hearing things, and I went on about my way. And then I heard it again. No, John, Jocko. And I ignored it again. I know, just my imagination. And all of a sudden, he started saying Jocko. And he said it so loud, it literally rattled my brain. And it was at a point I said, okay, I heard you. I hear you want to be called Jocko. That's your name. I will not ever call you John again. Your name is Jocko. You got it. Just don't yell. I didn't want them to know I could hear them, but he knew. You can't, like Robin said, you can't hide anything from them. They already know. So I'm like, okay. I said one day, I said, I'd like to have another picture of Jocko. I would really like to. And sure enough, this fall, he gave me another picture of him. And he comes in one day, I heard him chanting his name. He loves his name. And I heard him chanting his name, Jocko. He was singing it, oh, Jocko. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I just ignore it. And he came in on me a couple weeks ago at work, and he was howling his name like a dog, because I had told him, when you're here, could you give me some sort of indication that you're here so I can at least say, hey, buddy, how you doing? So I know you're there, and I can just say, hi, how you doing? That's it. I said, you can make any kind of tree knock, or you can make a sound that only I would know, that nobody else would know, just something. He chooses to do it telepathically. And he come in howling his name like a dog. Like it was Jocko. I heard it the first time, I ignored it. I heard it the second time, I ignored it. The third time, he did it again. He rattled my brain. And I said, are you here? And he said, yep. Okay, how you doing, buddy? I went on about and it wasn't nothing more. And yeah, he's pretty special. He's pretty brave to be just standing there allowing me to get that picture. That was pretty cool.
And that's extremely recent. That's as of this year, right?
Yeah, one was in July and the other one is in September. Yeah, the one in July is that you can see the green. That's his tree, I guess. He likes to hang out underneath that tree. He's the only one that I have any kind of. I don't. I have one out the lake that calls me Littlefoot. One day I was going down. I was at a shelter area, and they have going down. They have a little path that goes down to the water. And I had Rose, and we was going down to walk in the water. I walked the shoreline. And when I was halfway down there, I heard, careful, Littlefoot. And I'm like, okay. I just ignored it and went on. When I got down at the bottom, there was something in the water, and it looked like it could potentially be a snake. It was. It was a snake that was laying on the bottom of the water. It was a water moccasin. That was a warning. That I was being warned to be careful.
Wow. Yeah, that could have been extremely bad, that kind of snake, for sure.
Yeah. October the 20th of 2024. Or was it October? No, that's not October 20th, 2024. In October of 2023, I hurt myself. Now, I was making coffee, and the coffee pot had fell over. I was sitting on a seat, and the coffee maker fell over with the coffee, and it burned the front of me. And I threw open the doors, and I had water, and I washed it off, and I put a dress on to get me where I was going, and I left in a hurry. Like I said, they're always watching. And I left in a hurry, and I went to get something to put on the burn so it didn't become a big problem. And I was at home that night, and at 2:00 in the morning, I woke up, and the burn was really burning me. And I remedicated it and got me a drink, went to the bathroom, and I went and laid down. I had the air conditioner on because it was hot. And I was laying there, and I started hearing a loud bang, bang. And I'm like, what in the heck is going on out there? And I heard it again, bang. So I got up, and I looked at my clock. It was 3:10 in the morning, and I went looking out the window because I have an apartment complex. It's right on the other side of the house, and there's a dumpster. I sent you that picture where I said I think that where they were sitting and hanging out, watching my house, watching where I live, and they was beaten on that dumpster. And I thought, there is no way that they are doing the trash at 3:00 in the morning, because after the second time it went bang, I heard, and this was literally what it sounded like, was beep. I'm like, what in the heck are they doing out there? At that point, I knew they were out there. So I opened up the back door and I looked out there listening for a diesel truck and looking for a yellow light that was flashing. There was none of that. So I knew absolutely it was them. So I stepped out and I said, "What are y'all doing out here? You're going to wake up the whole neighborhood." So they quieted down after that. And what it was, they was getting me outside to check on me. I know that's what they was doing because I had hurt myself and they knew I had hurt myself and they knew that I lived here and they had been here and that was their way of getting me out of the house so they could look at me. And I told them, I said, "Thank you for coming and checking up on me because my own family doesn't even come check up on me." I appreciated that. And then there was another, there was another time at the lake, whenever the acorns were falling off the trees, it was in the fall. I was sitting and I literally put my chair where I wouldn't be getting hit by any of the acorns that was falling out of the tree. And I was sitting there and something hit me in my left shoulder blade and it hurt. And it rolled down and I reached around to grab what it was and it was a big old acorn. And I know what it was. One of the juveniles had come up behind me and had thrown an acorn and hit me with it. It hit me so hard that I was looking to make sure I didn't have a bruise. That's how hard it hit me. So that didn't come out of no tree. That was thrown.
Wow.
And I turned around and I said, "Oh, there'll be no more of that." They'll be hitting me with stuff. That hurt. And then this summer, this was just a few months ago, and actually back in September, as a matter of fact, Rose and I was out there and I lay down under the tree and take a nap. And I had laid down. I couldn't sleep, but I was just laying there. Rose had quit playing. When I get down in the ground with her, she wants to play at first, but then she lays down. She was laying down, and I rolled over and was laying on my left side. I had my eyes closed. And in my right ear, I heard a little girl's voice, the sweetest little voice you ever heard, and said, "What you doing?" In my right ear. I'm like, okay, that's interesting.
Wow, Rhonda, you've had some incredible experiences over really your entire life, and thank you for sharing those tonight.
That doesn't scratch the surface.
I'm sure of it.
Oh yeah, we have a gifting stone and the Doritos. I gave them Doritos the 4th of July week this last time, and I come home that night, and I was looking through Facebook, and there's a picture of a Bigfoot with a big old bag of Doritos, and the other hand is eating the Doritos. I don't get. It's like they can manipulate things. It's like I was driving down the road, and I was going to work. And a Dorito bag, I seen it, and it blew right in front of my van, and the first thing that came in my mind was, "I want." I'm like, okay, well, now you're asking for Doritos. And when I did put them on the gift, I have a gifting stone. There's a story behind that one. And they had stomped whenever I left it. And I'm like, "Hey, you got to wait a minute. I got to get these stick tights off of my dress. My dress is full of stick ties. I don't want to take these back to my camp. So when I'm done doing this, I'll leave." And the next time I went back, they had cleared that whole area all the way to the gifting stone. I could walk to that gifting stone and not get one cucumber or one stick tight on me one. They completely flattened it. Cleared. I said, "Well, thank you very much. That was nice of you." Yeah, they do some amazing things. And whenever I go to my mom's, there was one morning, I got out of my van, I heard, and I think they throw their voice, I don't know. But when I got out of my van, I heard a tree knocking, and this is just one hit. And I'm like, okay. That evening, when I come out to go back to my van to retire for the night, I heard another one, and it sounds like it's off in the distance. I think they can throw their voice to make themselves sound like because they had to have been right there watching.
Yeah, I would agree. They can definitely do mimicry, and that's a really interesting thing to think about as well, is throwing their voice. don't think it's out of the question for sure. But do you have, let's say if there's someone's listening and they're wanting to try to have their own experience, do you have any advice as to what they could do to try to initiate that?
I wouldn't initiate anything. All you got to do is just be there. They don't want to be harassed. They don't want it to be bothered. I just really don't. If you're not out there chasing around in their home, I mean, that's their home. Would you want somebody to come and chase you in your home? That's the way I look at it.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, makes sense.
I never even looked for them to come to me. They've just been there. And these last 3 years, they're determined they're going to be in my life, and I don't know why. I have no idea. I don't understand it, but it is what it is. They even showed up one time have you watched Paranormal Highway?
I don't think I've actually seen that one.
Okay, they have one that's called Paranormal Highway. It's on Amazon Prime. If I remember right, that's where I watched it at, or it was on Paramount. Is one or the other. I'm pretty sure they have it on Amazon Prime. But on the very last one, it's called the Beast of Bray Road. That road, what road is that?
Beast of Bray Road in Wisconsin.
Yeah, the Beast of Bray Road in Bigfoot is the very last one, the very last episode. And they were investigating, and they were having rocks thrown at them. The cameraman kept putting the camera where it could be seen, trying to look for it, where the rocks were coming from. And there was 2 guys in front of the camera was looking, and they couldn't see them. I seen them, both of them. And the first one I wouldn't have been able to see had he not blinked, because he's so well hidden. I sent you the 2 pictures. The first one, he's brown, and he's got his head, and he's got 2 big black eyes. But if he wouldn't have blinked, I wouldn't have seen him. And the second one, I seen him. And both times, I paused the show, and I took pictures. But I know that they don't even know that they got him on camera. There's no way that they know, or they would have said something. But they're there. They're hidden, but they're there. It's once you start seeing them, it's like your eyes are open to them and you see them. Now I can see them. They're like, I can look at the tree line. I can see shadows move every once in a while. I've seen them do that. And that's where I got a picture of the mama and the baby. I sent you a picture of mama and baby. Mm-hmm. And the mama's looking down and the baby is on her head. I had to have been a newborn. And daddy was right there close. He's blurry. But that was the daddy, and I think he was moving probably whenever I took the picture. I might have gotten too close or something, I don't know. But I think he was moving, because they was right there in one picture, but I zeroed in on her, and then I zeroed in on him. But they were right there together. That was at the lake.
Oh, the same lake we've been talking about, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting.
So yeah, I get after my life has radically changed, but I'm not afraid of them like I was. I'm more intrigued now, and I can relax. It's like Arla says, they're big and yeah, they're noisy, but I've never heard them. I've heard them make owl noises. Like one night at the lake, I heard the coyotes going crazy, and right along with them, and it sounded like it was running with them, there was an owl mimic, and it was a mimic. It was the funniest thing ever. And I was sitting there laughing. Yeah, I hear you there. But yeah, I don't ever hear them. They're pretty quiet around here. They don't make a whole lot of noise. Of course, they don't want to draw attention to themselves either, being right here in the city.
That's one of the wildest things, is that you're in the area of Kansas City.
There's an apartment complex just right here, right next to me. Mm-hmm. And matter of fact, there was one day I was sitting out in my backyard and I heard the weirdest sound. It sounded like an electrical sound. I don't know. It was a little boom. And I turned my head and I seen a blue flash. It was on the side of the house. And it looked like from the knee to the ankle of something walking towards the trees. And I'm thinking, I wonder if they're using a portal, because I do believe in portals. Sure. I do believe in them. Yeah. And that may be how they're getting in and out here. I know at work where I work, there's a ditch line that's a creek that runs through, and I sent you a picture of where I live, or where I work. That's where they hang out. Where I circled it in big red. They hang out down there, and I come out at 3:00 in the morning at work, and I heard birds singing to me. I have a recording of that. You can hear the crickets, in the middle of summer, and you hear the birds singing to me at 3:00 in the morning. And I'm like, then it didn't happen anymore. And I said, well, I missed that bird singing to me at 3:00 in the morning when I come out. And I come out the next time, and the birds was singing to me.
Oh, no way.
So
That's wild.
Yeah, it's okay. And I think they hit my dog one night with infrasound.
Oh, yeah.
I told him, don't do that again. No, don't hurt my baby. I wouldn't hurt your babies for the world. Don't hurt mine.
Absolutely.
But she runs out. She goes out. She runs to the end of the chain link fence, and she barks, and she comes back up. I think they was probably down there and probably didn't realize they just seen her coming. But yeah, she was healthy all day long, had eaten all day. She was just fine, and all of a sudden in the middle of the night, she started throwing up. She threw up all night and all the way up into the next morning. She threw up. And I was like, okay, I just almost bet that's what happened to her, because she was just fine before.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy to hear how different things are affected by infrasound. But Rhonda,
I believe it.
I feel like we'll probably be hearing more from you in the future. It sounds like things are going to continue to keep happening to you.
They've all of a sudden stopped. Here lately. There's not been nothing. The only one's been here is Jocko. I don't see him anywhere in the foreseeable future the way he goes. But yeah, they've been around, and I just take pictures every once in a while. Or I've gotten to where I don't even take so many pictures anymore, because I know they're there. I don't have anything. My curiosity has been satisfied. I know they're there, and I know they're coming around me. And they leave me gifts, and I'm fine with it. And I've just told them, okay, if you don't have a good heart or good intentions, you don't need to be here. So ever since I've said that, they've really not been coming around except for at work. At work sometimes, but it's mainly been Jocko.
Rhonda, this has been just a bunch of information in this conversation. I'm going to have to go back and listen to it a few times, I think. So many different areas of Missouri were mentioned. People can just pretty much follow along with the map as you talk. But I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. If anything does happen in the future, feel free to reach out. And
I will.
Yeah.
I'll keep you posted. I'll send you pictures every once in a while.
Absolutely.
I don't take, like I said, I don't take pictures much anymore, but I do like to record the gifts that they give me, because it is interesting. Some of the things that they do. They leave me they left me the cross on one side of the yard and the star looking thing on the other side. And they left an X beside in between the windows of my clients at work. They just do things. They just do what they do. And they communicate in so many different ways. Just got to be ready for anything whenever they start in. I'm new, but I'm a little bit more relaxed with it now. I can go outside at night, and I can sit and not be afraid.
Exactly, which I think is a good place to get to.
I can travel in my van by myself with my dog, and I can go different places, and I'm okay. I'm not afraid anymore like I was. Like I said, I've just, it's like they've adopted me. Oh, whenever I went to North Carolina to my son's, that was a scary one. Now that one scared me. He had me sleeping in his back room, and I told him before, I said, now, when I've been here within 24 to 48 hours, don't be surprised if we have some sort of activity around here with Bigfoot. And I was laying in bed, it was like 1:00 in the morning, and I was laying there, and I heard, and I felt the presence out there, and I heard something sniffing through the air conditioner that he had in the window, was sniffing. It sounded like a dog would be sniffing underneath a door, but it was through the air conditioner that was like 6 foot off the ground. And I'm like, oh crap. Please do not rip that out of the window, because my foot was right there by that window. I laid there and I held my breath. the whole time it was sniffing, and finally it just quit and walked on, and there was nothing else that happened the rest of the time I was there. So I think he just come by, got a sniff, didn't like what he smelt, and went on. I don't think they really have much care for humans in North Carolina. That's in Jacksonville, North Carolina.
Did you see any tracks outside the next day?
I went out there and looked. No, I went out there and looked. The only thing that was out there was a smell. And my daughter-in-law made a comment about that. She said, "Did you smell that out there?" She said, "It stinks out there." She said, "I've never smelt that since I've lived here. We've been living here for 5-6 years, and we've never smelt that." And I said, "I had a visitor last night." I let him know I had a visitor last night sniffing through the window, so that's probably the remnants of his stench.
You never know when they're gonna show up. Is what it sounds like. You just got to be ready.
Within 24 to 48 hours, and sometimes they meet me there. They're already there. It's like they know when you're coming. They just have that. Like I said, they just know. They know where I'm going to walk. They know where to leave things. It is what it is. I don't question it anymore because I'm not going down that rabbit hole. I'm not interested in going down that rabbit hole. I just take it as it comes.
Sure.
It's a learning experience. That's what I see it as.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing is we look at this as a way you can learn from anything you experience in this field. But I think that's a great way to put it for sure. But
I'd enjoy them now. If they're not around, it's weird to me. If I don't feel them around anywhere, it is weird for me. It was weird when I was in North Carolina and that was the only thing that happened the whole time I was there. It was, okay, this is weird. I'm used to feeling the presence of at least one of them, but no, there wasn't nothing there.
Absolutely. Rhonda, as we start to get towards the end of our time together, do you have any final thoughts for people that are listening at all, or?
You don't have to be as afraid of them. I know there's people out there that do have bad experiences with them, but like Arla Williams says, if you think you're going to have a bad experience, you will. And If you think you're going to have a good experience, you will. But there are places that I won't go in Missouri. I until I have somebody that can travel with me, I won't go into the Ozarks by myself. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
There are too many reports that they are aggressive. No, I'm not going to Table Rock. I'm not going to the Lake of the Ozarks. I'm not going in them areas by myself. I will not. And I'm not going into Mark Twain and camping by myself unless I have somebody that is there with me and there's other people around me. No, I won't, because I don't want that kind of experience. They've chased people out.
Oh, absolutely. I've taken reports myself from Mark Twain where things get really bad.
With me traveling the way I travel, I keep an eye out in these areas that I'm going to. And I watch the reports, and I watch all of that, because when I pay attention to how I feel. Pay attention to how you feel. Watch your back, because this life out there, it ain't what we think it is. I have learned that it is not what we think it is. I even have pictures of things that look like, I sent you a picture, it looks like a hyena or a dog. That looks more like a hyena to me than it does a dog. But they're out there, and you need to be careful, especially whenever you're hunting and whenever you're fishing, and because they see it as we're in their territory and we're taking their food, and they do become aggressive because they're protecting their food source. They're protecting their home. And I just always announce myself. I let them know, hey, I'm here. This is what I'm here for. I've even fished and not had a problem. And if I was to catch anything, I probably would have left them one. And I don't feed them. No, that ain't gonna happen either. But they do get little goodies every once in a while. When I go to the lake and before I leave, I'll leave them a little something. We have a gifting stone.
Oh, sure. Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Rhonda, I appreciate you coming on and sharing a lot of things that I think people can learn from. And it's been a pleasure chatting with you tonight.
It's been fun. It's been good. It's good to talk to somebody who is going to listen and hear what you're saying than somebody's going to sit back there and say, oh, you're full of it. Because I get that all the time. I get people say, they look at me like, yeah, whatever. I had one of the girls at work. She said, there's something going on back there. I was working nights and my dog wouldn't leave back there. He was back there at the back to back. She said, I don't know. I couldn't get him to come back up. He was back there barking and barking. And I said, let me tell you something. I said, there wasn't a somebody out there. There was a something out there. I said, there's a Bigfoot that hangs out back there. I've got pictures of him. I said, and that was probably what he was barking at. And she said, oh, whatever. She just blew me off. And I was like, okay, that's what you want to believe. I said, most people, it's like they're going to have to come up and tap them on the shoulder before they're going to believe it. And even then, they probably wouldn't.
There you go. You got to, at the end of it all, you got to have an open mind and be ready to see what you might see. But
all of this is a new experience to me, this mind speak stuff. I didn't ask for none of that. But Jocko was darn sure going to make sure that I acknowledged him. He knew that I could hear him. And I was going to acknowledge him. He was not going to go without acknowledgement.
There you go. He let you know. Yep.
I told him I was going to get print offs of his pictures, and I was going to frame them and put them on my wall so I could look at them every day. He was just that special.
Well, Rhonda, thank you so much for being on the show. We'll definitely keep in touch for the future. But thanks so much for chatting.
Yeah, that'll be good. Thank you. You have a good night.
You too.
It's been fun.
Here at Bigfoot Society, our goal is to provide a platform for those that have encountered Bigfoot to share their encounter in a safe and respected environment. But we need to hear your story. If you've experienced something that you just can't explain, please send me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Then we can start the conversation. I know a lot of you have not shared your encounter at all. It's been 20 years, and it's time that you get this off your chest, and then you can get some well-deserved rest, because I know you haven't been sleeping. I understand what you're going through, and I appreciate every one of you listening. Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's a list. If you've had any encounters in Oregon, which I'm sure there's probably a few of you out there, please feel free to reach out immediately. You can use email bigfootsociety@gmail.com. A special thank you to all the Bigfoot Society Patreon and YouTube channel members. It's your support that helps keep the show going, and I extremely appreciate it. If you want to join in the fun, you can join over at patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. I'll see you there. And again, thanks for listening.